we've got over 50% of the prison population who haven't achieved functional literacy, and about 20% of them are illiterate. I know this because I've started to work with a researcher called Christine Franklin, who is now working in prisons and working with the Prison Learning Association to try and find out what has happened. Why have we got this correlation between our prison populations and illiteracy? And I can tell you what it is. It's because learning to read didn't happen at the right phase. And then life chances fell in. And then rather than associating with young people in their teenage years when they were at secondary school, with the other young people who were in the positive groups, started to associate with the young people who were in the negative groups, in the non-learner groups. And I've seen it recently with someone who got involved in running county lines, who was a lovely kid who just got absorbed into this world of being vulnerable and then becoming somebody's pawn in a really terrifying game. We know that if we don't get things right for young people, the knock-on effect is really awful for them. And I worry about what we do in secondary schools when we put people into inclusion booths, because we're not solving problems in inclusion booths. We're isolating children with their negative dialogue, and surely we should not be doing that. So one of the things that I did at the school where I was with Connor was he was being sent to the exclusion booth every day to sit with his miserable thoughts and think about his horrible life and be presented with work that he couldn't access, which compounded his misery. And I set up something called a behaviour reflection unit in school. And in that behaviour reflection unit, it became a forum to do some testing, some assessment, talk about your journey with reading and learning as a youngster, and talk about your friendship groups and how your friendship groups form your identity and your idea of you. And you know what? It was great for Connor because he realised he was an artist, and he realised that there were picture books that he loved looking at, and he started to build vocabulary. But do you know what? It was very time intensive, and financially for a school to set up with someone who has behaviour expertise to invest time in that child, it's a lot of money. But what I would say is, having seen the whole picture all the way through to people in prisons, spending hours and hours in their cells, not being able to read their probation documents or any of their documents, we can get it wrong at this phase, or we can get it seriously wrong at that phase. We can spend the money in primary education to support learning and get the right tools and equipment and time needed for these children who desperately need support at that phase. Or we can rock it on till they get to secondary, where they're going to need a lot more intensive support, because by that time they're in a state of diffusion and they're with their friends who are giving them fairly negative ideas about their role in society. Or we can roll it on till we get to prison. And I know that sounds really stark, but that's the reality. And I've seen it because I've worked in primary proofs and seen children at the age of 5 at primary proofs who are already in desperate need of support and help and investment, huge amount of investment. So young people need attention. And if they don't get attention here, boy, are they going to get it at some other time along the chain, aren't they? And for society, that can become incredibly expensive, hugely expensive. The cost of illiteracy on society is massive. It is something I passionately believe we have got to change